All right, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. Let's take a look and see what's going on with Bitcoin. So, had a nice kind of consolidation period, honestly, within this order block for basically the whole afternoon, just kind of ranging within a couple $100. We just, your main move was this morning, honestly, when we went from 64,218 all the way up to about 65,000. So a good $800 move up, but that's basically all that she wrote there. There wasn't really any additional, movement after that point. Now, that being said, the real question now, at least when it comes to price action, is whether or not we hit our high for the week, right? And I think that's what we're all kind of wondering. There's a possibility, right? There's a possibility that Monday midnight open of last week would be the high of this week. Now, whether or not, that's going to stay that way is a bigger question. I definitely will tell you that I think that shorting is going to be risky at this moment just because of, how we are consolidating and we haven't really seen a really big move to the downside or really a lot of sensitivity from this high. If you think about it, from a high of 65,034, we're only about, even less than $500 underneath that high. So in reality, if I were to squish these candles together, you can see that that's not really a lot of movement to the downside from it hitting its high, right? There was a liquidity pool here. We did hit it. We did retrace after that, but we haven't gotten that expansive move downward. That being said, on the daily time frame, this could also turn into somewhat of a swing high, right? Kind of similar to what we had right here. We have a lower, basically a lower high, a higher high, a lower high, and it just kind of, reverse price downward. That can definitely happen again. I'm not saying it can't. It's going to be risky at this point to short it, okay? Never financial advice, but I'm just telling you from my experience, what I've seen here. Now, when it comes to the 10 hour, you are also staying above all of these moving averages. 10 hour, your 8 hour, you're staying above it. Your 6 hour, your 4 hour, everything is staying above, this 200 MA. Now, the biggest one that you're going to want to watch, and this could actually even be some sort of a bull flag that eventually plays out. But you'll want to watch the 4 hour, right? The 4 hour could stay in this type of flag here for the next, another maybe 8 to 12 hours. Have that 21 come into price action, crossing this 200, and you get that move up. And that's why I'm saying, like, you could technically short this. It might be a little bit late now, but I don't know how far this is going to go down. I know that earlier we were targeting, based off of liquidity, we were targeting around, I think it was around 63,900-ish area, which is the top of this order block. But we may not even get to that point, right? We may even get and bounce off of 64,200 if it wanted to go that low. And you got to think that's only $342 away, right? So you're not really making big movement or big profits off of these, basically these trades unless you're using a larger position size, right? That's going to be the only way that you're making a few $100s off of some of these moves, right? So, as far as the 1 hour, the 2 hour goes, everything's kind of in this downward, consolidation bull flag, I would have to say, for right now. Just waiting to have price action come into, these MAs, right? So the 21 meeting price action or, bouncing off the 200, like that's all stuff that we're going to look for here, okay? Now, that being said, taking a look at the 30-minute, still, in this nice bullish flaggish pattern. Same with the 15. All of your bigger time frames leading into your small time frames are all on this bull flag pattern. Okay, now how far that elongates to, we don't know yet. But I would at least, for right now, target, at the very lowest, potentially 64,354, 64,2-ish area. If not, maybe the 64,437, somewhere in between, the middle of this order block potentially could be another place for it to potentially bounce. That being said, guys, that is what I'm seeing as far as price action goes. Let's go ahead and take a look at liquidity, see what's happening there. So taking a look at liquidity, let me refresh this here. All right. So taking a look at your 4 hour, and this won't probably change. Yeah, so you're just kind of showing that you're consolidating here. Nothing major on the 4 hour, so everything's looking okay. You're not really going to see a lot of liquidity unless I really zoom in here. And you can see it's right above us. So 65,692, it's telling us would be the nearby target if we were to keep moving up, right? And that is that 25x pull up there. So I would, at the very least, for this week, target 65,692 if we were going to stay bullish. If not, then you can start talking about, we made our high, we're going to start dropping into the 62,000-ish territory, okay? So 62,100 would be a potential if we did hit our high for the week. Let's take a look at our 1 hour real quick. So taking a look at the 1 hour. All right, so we had that 786 retracement we discussed earlier, basically putting us right about that yellow area, which is still a potential target. At a very bullish case scenario, we could possibly pull it from this bottom, and you're looking at about 64,248-ish area, 64,300, I would say. But I am pulling it from more of a bigger extension down to this local low right here. Not the full low, but the temporary local low. And I would like to see us get into here for a discount retracement before we keep moving up. Now, that being said, you can see we have enough liquidity to keep moving up. 65,600 is going to be that target, right, that we saw in that 4 hour. So again, we have the bridges, we have everything there on the 100x, we have it all there on the 50x. Everything's showing us we can get into the high 65K range if it wanted to, if this is not the top right here. So I'm going to be targeting 65.6 to 65.737 for right now as far as our local high goes. And then if we do get that retracement to the downside, just look for that 63, 7 to 63,900-ish area to still hold. If it doesn't, you want to have 63,351 hold. And if that doesn't, you're going to start probably dropping into the 62K range. All right, final time frame we'll take a look at is a 15. It should be kind of mimic the hourly, which it is. We dove into that pool of liquidity right here, possibly going to get that reversal back to the upside, at least to about 65,600-ish area. Marking off the 50x, it also shows us that we could potentially get into 65,737. So anywhere between 65.6 and 65.8 is where I would be targeting to the upside. And again, to the downside, you'd be looking at about 63.7 to 63.9, at least for the time being. Now, if you take a look at our order book through open market, you can see that there's a lot more orders to the upside. So it is alluding to the fact that we could definitely get that move up. You have multi-million-dollar orders, 65,000, 65.2, all the way up to lead you to 65.5, which we know is right below 65.6, and that's what we've been talking about, right? So 65.5, 65.6 is what the order book is telling us for right now. To the downside, if this were to drop, you're looking at orders down to 63.650, 63.600-ish, right below 63.7 to 63.9 range that I was talking about, right? So more confidence for you guys as far as my levels go. These are levels that you can really expect to maybe hold some weight to them because of how much confluence there is. I usually only like to discuss levels that hold weight as far as multiple levels or multiple points of confluence. I don't like to just talk about support and resistance levels that may be ignored, right? And then, you do have one order all the way down to 63,350 as well as 62,875. So we can get that movement to the downside if it wanted to. It's just all going to depend on whether or not 65,057 was our high for the week. Okay? And it very well could be because of the day of the week that it is. That being said, guys, let's take a real quick look at the simple map, see how the simple map aligns with the support and resistance levels that I talked about. Let me go ahead and zoom in here. All right, so taking a look at the simple map, you can see that we do have a level at 64,380. You lose that, you can get to about 63,810, which is within that 63.7, 63.9 range, right? And then if you keep losing that, if you can't hold 63.8, it's basically saying you can drop down into the lower 63K region between 63.2 and 63.3 is what it looks like, okay? Now to the upside, if you are able to get that move up for right now, let me see if I can zoom in properly here. You can target basically 65,070, as your first area of resistance. And then after that, you kind of fall through all the way to about 65.5, then to about 65,730, and then to about 65,970, which is about 66K. So you can kind of get that follow through, if you can get past some of these major levels. There's a lot of levels, unfortunately, that are going to act as resistance in the 65K range. But again, I'm going to personally be targeting that 65.6 to 65 or 65.5 to 65.7-ish range as a potential high for the week, unless it really wants to get bullish. Okay. Taking a look at your swing time frames, your larger time frames, honestly, it usually shows the same information. So want to keep 64,380. You don't keep that. You can roll all the way down to 63,810-ish area. you don't keep that, you can keep rolling to about 63.3 to 63.200, and so forth to 62.640 even. Now to the upside, once again, guys, you get past 65K, you can kind of roll into this liquidity up to 65.5 to 65.7. You can get, if you get above those, you can basically roll into 65.940 or 66K, and then really get a full move into 67K region, or very high 66K region at the worst, or sorry, the best case scenario. I would say that, if you do pass up 65.940, there is a potential that you can just kind of roll through all this liquidity. It won't have as many resistance levels as 65K range did, to the point where you could potentially, like I said, hit 67K. All right, guys, that being said, that is what I have for you this evening. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. As usual, if you want to use TradingDifferent and its tools, feel free to use my code Sean to get 10% off. TradingDifferent.com/code/Sean to get 10% off being able to identify liquidity, not just for Bitcoin, by the way. I know I don't mention this often, but you can use this for altcoins as well, as long as it's part of the platform. There's plenty of alts. I believe there's over 30 alts that you could take a look at. It also includes its trend indicator, the high frequency chart, all different indicators that allow you to basically view what the trading bots are doing, be able to identify trend. It's just an overall amazing tool to identify anything that you want to know about price action for any specific asset that's involved on the platform. All right, guys, that being said, that is what I have for you for this evening. I hope you all have a wonderful night, and I will talk to you all in the morning. Take care.